We're here with our friend Jackson. It's been a while since I've seen you. It's
Yeah, likewise. Man.
uh,
Yeah, nice, nice.
yeah, singer for Aerials. Let's start with that. Um, a rock and roller. Um, I was going to say, how are you coping with isolation at the moment?
Yeah, it's been okay for me in most respects. I mean, it's been pretty tumultuous in aspects of my business for sure, but on a personal level, I've been working at home for 10 years, and so that part of it didn't change for me at all,
Mm.
whereas that's been a massive impact for a lot of people. That part of it's just the same, except I have two young children. So it's just always hectic working at home. So but yeah, look, it's been a really interesting and, yeah, like I said, tumultuous time. I guess I obviously speak to people who work in the music business all day, every day, and so it's, yeah, hearing how different people are coping in different contexts has been, yeah, interesting and challenging. And yeah, I mean, I was on tour in Europe when it all went pear shaped, and yeah, so I guess that was the main difference. I was meant to be on the road for, well, still, yeah, I would still be
Mm.
moving around overseas. So it was, yeah, I guess that was the major impact for me. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
of course,
lifestyle. Yeah.
of course.
You
Now
weren't in
we,
the middle of Milan when it all kicked off by any chance, were you?
No, no, I was in Berlin,
all
and
right.
yeah, and I landed, I think, yeah, like the night before the main laws kicked in here. So I didn't technically have to go into um isolation when I got back, because I arrived back literally hours before that'll happen. But I did anyway. I self-isolated for a week, even though I had missed my children and stuff.
Mm.
um, but yeah, was a strange time, and still is a strange time. But just getting on with it and trying to solve problems, and yeah, just do the best that I can to make make some silver lining where I can,
Mm.
in as
Mm.
we all are, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
In,
think that's probably a good
silver
time
lining.
for a.
You don't really silver lining, though, do you? It just kind of happens. But yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah, yep. I think it's probably a good time for a bit of a reset here. You're listening to Education in Isolation, which is our fun podcast. We're going to get the dumb questions out of the way. We're going to have to talk a little bit about your sock game because no one's wearing shoes anymore. Um, in the UK, it's still not that warm, so we're all still wearing socks. So we're just having a little bit of a discussion about what the sock game is going on here.
I
How are
thought
you
everybody
going?
wore thongs in Australia, so you
And
wouldn't be wearing any socks, would you?
Yeah, I am, man. I live on a mountain in the Gold Coast hinterland, and it's always cold up here. Like, I got, yeah, big warm socks on. Yeah, because it's exactly 8 degrees colder than the bottom of the mountain all the time, whether it's summer, winter, whatever. So it's yeah, I've got the fire going inside, and
I
yeah,
mean,
I
how
love
cold is it there? Just out of it, how cold
14 degrees tonight.
is
Yeah,
that?
which is
Is
the
that
coldest night.
Fahrenheit?
It's-
no, Australians have the metric system. Damn it.
yeah, it's the coldest night we've had all year by far. Yeah, so
That's like a
it's
sunny
yeah,
day for us.
It
yeah.
sounds beautiful. I do miss. Well, I was going to say I do miss the sun, but it's been sunny all week this week, and England's a bit
Mm,
bit different to Oz in that there's just less brown and more green. Um,
yeah.
but but yeah. Well, I'm in my stripy socks today. Ben, how are you going?
Yeah, I'm
These are the
barefoot.
dumb things we do that we must continue because the students expect us to be dumb. Um,
No, I'm completely barefoot. I'm in the
you're
comfort of my
barefoot?
own home.
Hang on,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah. I'm not.
Socks
I'm not
today.
putting my feet on the camera. Yeah.
All right, cool. And then the other really important question. These are probably more important than anything. Is what's your favorite cheese?
My favorite cheese, well, to pinpoint a specific one's hard, but in general, it's just the ones that my wife makes. My wife makes a lot of different cheeses because we don't eat dairy, so she makes dairy-free cheeses out of all sorts of things, out of well, macadamias mainly, but macadamias and cashews, and she's just really good at it. Really good at it. I've been encouraging her to go into business for many, many years, and we went through and got a commercial kitchen license, and then we had our first baby.
So, right. Yeah. That makes everything convenient, does it?
Correct. But yeah, she'll get back to it at some point. But she makes the most amazing dairy-free cheeses ever. And I haven't eaten dairy for 20 years, so I've tried a lot of dairy-free cheeses, and they are predominantly shocking, you know. But yeah, she makes amazing ones. So yeah, anything made by her would be my favorite, is the short answer.
I think you've just upped our cheese game now, because we haven't really investigated making cheese ourselves. We just kind of eat it with nice wine or something.
No, there's a channel you both need to get on. It's an Australian cheesemaker. He's a guy called Gavin Webber, and he starts every tutorial video. He makes loads of different cheeses. Your Wensleydales and cheddars and whatnot.
Yeah.
But starts every video calling his fans curd nerds.
Beautiful. Beautiful stuff.
It's one up from Carol Baskin, but
yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right, so stupid stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
So you hinted at a bunch of things before, Jackson. You were talking about going on tour. We haven't actually introduced you properly. If you'd like to have a little kind of quick history about me, that would be wonderful, so we can get our students up to speed with who we're talking to and why we're chatting to you.
Sure. Yeah, well, I'm 30. What am I? 39. And I have been playing in bands since I was in grade 9. So that was like 1996. It was the first band I started playing in. And so, yeah, I've been in and around music for a long time. And I started playing in sort of, as a punk band, I guess, at school, which sort of morphed into like a progressive rock band. And then I played in an instrumental rock band for many years, I guess, like ambient sort of post-rock stuff. And then a sort of Joy Division-esque type rock band for a few years. And then the main band that I played in that you mentioned at the start, Aerials, is a progressive rock band, and we started playing in it about 2011. So in the lead up to that, I'd done small tours and that sort of stuff. But with Aerials, we toured a lot, and it was a real blast. I really loved playing in that band. And at the same time in my professional career, I was starting to do a little bit of work in that area. Well, I mean, it was all of my work really at the time.
Sorry, in the touring area, or?
No, I was a music lawyer from 2010 onwards. So I started practicing law in 2003. And I was a corporate lawyer for a while, an administrative lawyer. So I worked in sort of government circles, not with the government, against the government. So I was like a plaintiff administrative lawyer, so challenging government decisions. And whilst in that position, I started volunteering for an organisation called the Arts Law Centre. So it was just commercial lawyers who gave free advice to artists. And I used to do that one night a month over the telephone. And it was through that process that I became aware of the concept of a music lawyer. I met some music lawyers in that process. I just loved music and I was a lawyer. And so I offered to give some free advice because I knew a bit about copyright, and from a friend who had recommended me. But then I realized the concept exists. Bizarre that I didn't know the concept exists because I was a musician and a lawyer, but there you go. And, once I knew that concept existed, I was like, oh, geez, what have I been doing the last 6 years? And so I started merging more into that area. I started teaching entertainment law at a university, because I already knew a lot about copyright law. And so, I taught entertainment law at Bond University here in Queensland from 2008 onwards, I think. and yeah, I practiced pretty much exclusively in music from like 2011. I mean, I did a little bit of film. I had a few gaming companies, a couple of surfers, a couple of models. So, I mean, I was technically, you know, an entertainment lawyer, but really my love was music. So, you know, it was, that
So
was always
was
what
that
I
for your own
actually,
law company as freelance?
no, no, not initially. So yeah, I worked for a friend, a mate I went to uni with, who had been practicing music law for many years. He went out on his own at that time, and his name's Chris Chow, and yeah, he's just a really great music lawyer and was a really good mentor for me early on. So I learned everything I know from Chris,
Mm-hmm.
and so he was great for me early on, and you know, a few years in, it was sort of, you know, I was pretty much flying solo on everything. So yeah, we run quite separate businesses under the same banner there. So I still consult to him, but we occasionally work on clients together, which is fun in the more complex matters or the more high profile clients that need a bit of extra assistance. But I also started my own company in 2017 called Artists Only, and so I provide legal management and consultancy services through that company. And yeah, I guess I started that company because I started to dabble in management more at that point. And like I always did sort of business development consultancy for clients, like just, you know, which essentially is just, you know, helping people get things together in a business sense without charging them hundreds of dollars an hour as a lawyer, you know what I mean? So just basic sort of artist development stuff on a consultancy basis. And I really enjoyed that. And I've always had a lot of managers on my books. You know, managers are always the best clients for lawyers because they bring you a lot of work through their client base. So I always had good, close relationships with the managers on my books. And I just love the artist management relationship. It's a fascinating relationship. It really is. It's classic. There's no other relationship like it, you know? So, and I know the ins and
Actually,
outs of it.
can I push you on that? Like, expand a little bit. What is it you love about the artist manager relationship?
No, it's just so complex. It's so complex. I mean, every relationship in this business is so complex.
Hmm.
But I guess, yeah, the complexities in the artist management relationship are ones that I find particularly interesting. You know, because the complexities in, say, a manager label relationship, they're more obvious. You know, the complexities in an artist manager relationship, they're more deep seated and just really fascinating. You know, because you've got this really well, it's the juxtaposition between the creativity and the commerce at its rawest form. You know what I mean? Where you've got someone really trying to drive the business and dealing with a creative, and it's tough. It's really tough. You know,
I
it's
think
really hard being a manager, and
I think
it's
you and
really hard.
Ben can commiserate on each other with the you know, when commerce and creativity butt heads, or when
Yeah.
timelines and creativity butt heads, and
It's all about the art, man.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
because I mean, you know, I love negotiating the deals, like bringing them together,
mm,
and you know, I see everything in between, and then I see when they split, you know, and how that plays out. So, you know, I feel like as a lawyer, I got to really know that relationship a lot better than most managers because, you know, they only sort of know the relationships that they've had and their circumstances that they've had, but I see so many different ones and can compare them, and you know, and dealing with the breakdowns is again much more complex and interesting than your typical relationship breakdown. You know what I mean? Like the relationship breakdown between an artist and a label or a publisher or an agent is not nearly as complex and interesting as the breakdown of a relationship between an artist and a manager.
because obviously we're talking about different forms of intellectual property and the different ways those break down, plus then the personal relationship, plus the artistic relationship, and
Yeah.
so you're negotiating on multiple different levels. You're not just negotiating with an artist. Well, working with an artist on just here's the breakdown of the deal. Here's what you do. You're going much deeper than that.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's always been great. I never get tired of it, you know, and it's always different, you know. Every like there's of course industry standards in and around the artist management relationship, but a lot of them are changing, you know. Um, yeah, significantly changing.
Mm.
Mainly because you know a lot of good managers are realizing that their skill sets are well suited to running labels, and so they set up labels, and a lot of them are trying to get a good slice of publishing these days, and you know, like everyone in this business, just trying to make sure that they're capitalizing as best they can on their skill sets and their connections, and broadening their businesses. And so yeah, it's a fascinating time to be
Well, this is
working.
something that we're encountering a lot in the UK. You know, I don't know about you guys out there. You know, certainly our management fees have risen here. You know, you've got all these companies, you know, even like PR companies and radio pluggers all getting paid in advance for work. And it doesn't matter if they deliver on any results. And of course, we don't get paid unless there's, you know, unless the artist is earning money. So, I mean, on that note, from what I can see, you have your own label with Said Act.
Me?
Yeah, yeah.
No, no, I don't.
Tones and I is not.
No,
No?
Bad Batch is her label. I mean, you know, obviously I discussed the idea with her, and I advised her to do that as her manager and her legal advisor at the time, you know. But no, Bad Batch is hers. I'm not a director or shareholder of
Oh
that
right,
company.
okay.
No. I really love the idea of setting up labels for artists and doing the grunt work. And I guess a lot of lawyers who have done that for artists and managers as well, I mean, have a stake in those businesses and stuff. But yeah, my journey with Tones in the early days and now has always been about empowerment and control and making sure that she knows that she is the CEO of the business and that she's really and she's really passionate about that, you know. So I've always tried to nurture that, and that was evident early on. And so she'll run an empire one day. I know it for sure. That she's just got, yeah, she's got everything you need to do that. She's great in that respect. So yeah, no, I set that up for her, and it has worked to her advantage significantly having that entity. But you know, I mean, labels are so varied. You know, a label at the end of the day is just someone who calls themselves a label and registers a business name. But you know, so that they operate in all sorts of different ways for all sorts of different reasons. And yeah, I will undoubtedly set up a label at some point when it makes sense for me to do so. It doesn't at the moment because I don't have time, but yeah, I've always assumed that at some point in my career I would start a label. I mean, I'm a big lover of post rock, instrumental ambient rock, like the band, my favorite band that I played in when I was younger, and I'm working on some solo material in that space at the moment. And one of my best friends is working on an album that I really love, and so I'm sort of, you know, managing him at the moment or shopping his work for deals. And so, you know, something like that, you know, where just a niche sort of market. And yeah, because label to me, it's got to make sense because it's a lot of work. And yeah, but you know, starting a post rock label or something like that for me would be a nice little project at some point, I think. But
so what was the decision behind you know, her having her own label rather than shopping her around to a major? Was it right from the get-go, it was a case of, oh no, you wouldn't suit that kind of environment and you know, you need to be independent? Or was it a case of, actually, we've got enough clout by ourselves, we don't need people to be taking a cut and we can do the majority of the job ourselves?
Yeah, look, I should clarify too, because Bad Batch, her label licenses to effectively a major. So we're signed to Elektra, who is owned by Warner. So we're independent in Australia, New Zealand, but not rest of world. You know, so
no, not the rest of the world. Yeah.
yeah, so I was confident that we could do things in this territory, but you know, with the type of artist that Tones is, and everything that I saw from the get go, it just made sense. You know, I knew that it you know, especially once she broke, you know, which was on her first song, really. You know, it was such an intense period of my life, and you know, I have said things about major labels in the past, and I don't know, some of them are on the record. I don't know if it's anything online or whatever. I haven't really thought too deeply about. But yeah, I haven't been the biggest fan of major labels in some contexts. I work with them in many different contexts for different reasons, but obviously I'm usually fighting against them. So as a lawyer, so it's well, not obviously. I mean, doing deals with them, but that often ends up in very difficult negotiations. You know what I mean? Most major label negotiations, when you're signing a deal, kind of feel like a litigation sometimes when you're just at the start of it. But look, we have an amazing label, Elektra, and you know, the amount of heat that was on her when we were going through this process was pretty intense. It was pretty much unprecedented, I think, in an Australian context. And so I had an extraordinary number of labels reach out, and I dwindled it down to 12, and I went to New York and LA for a week, and I smashed out 3 2-hour meetings a day, as well as a lunch and a dinner, and just went to town and really just, you know, did the absolute best I could to get through as many meetings and as many hard questions with as many people as I possibly could, to make sure that I was acting in her best interests and not just signing with a major to get a big advance, which is what a lot of people assume, you know. But yeah, I mean, the major label world is a unique world, and it made sense for us. You know, we got an exceptionally good deal. I don't think there's any harm in me saying that. You know, I don't think Elektra would mind anyone knowing that she did have a lot of leverage at the time, and so we got a great deal. But yeah, you know, it's been nice to stay independent. But I mean, we got distro through Sony and ANZ, so and they're so good to us. It feels like, you know, we've got 3 record labels here. You know what I mean? Because they bend over backwards to make things work. The owner down, the person who runs Sony down here, Dennis Hanlon, is a massive fan of Tones, as is everyone in that company. So, you know, the label her label has essentially been a vehicle to build a solid foundation through which we could license her records. She owns her masters and always will, and that was always part of the process. I'm a big believer in never giving your masters away, and so, you know, Elektra came to the party on that, and we have an incredibly strong relationship. And yeah, I mean, they have proven that, you know, major label muscle can be a great thing in the right context.
Yeah, in the right context. Yeah.
Just want to quickly pick up on something you said before. Now, you said, I wanted to get through as many hard questions as possible. I'd love to get a bit of an expansion on what you consider to be a hard question with labels.
Well, look, it's interesting because, I mean, you know, when you're having initial meetings with people, you don't want to dive into the detail too much. So face to face, you know, I guess always in my experience in negotiating deals for artists, I mean, the face to face is really about the artist and the label, not the manager or the lawyer, whoever else is in the room. It's about building rapport and giving the artist the opportunity to suss out whether they like the people in charge. But yeah, over email, subsequent to that is where it all happens, really, because, you know, I guess I've seen a lot of deals in my time, a lot more than most managers have. And so, you know, I had a lot of hard questions about all sorts of stuff, you know, given that, you know, I have always been of the view that record deals historically have been very much skewed in favor of labels for no real apparent reason. And, you know, I guess the hard questions all stem around making sure that, you know, if there is a slice of a particular pie to be taken, that it's warranted to take that bigger slice based on the detail. You know, it's always about the detail of a particular service that's being provided in exchange for a particular slice. You know, so yeah, I mean, that's always the main thing for me, is to make sure all the details are agreed, and yeah, I think that's the essence of it for sure. I mean, in terms of the specific hard questions, that would be a harder question for me to answer, because I'd have to think more deeply about it.
Well, for example, ownership of masters and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, ownership of masters, absolutely. That's a big one, obviously. But yeah, I mean,
labels tend to ask for the ownership of masters, don't they? That's a negotiating negotiating straight away is a label saying we want part ownership of the masters. Yeah.
Well, I mean, historically, that's certainly been the norm. You know,
but historically, they were paying for the recording.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but still, I mean, these days you can get a license deal and have the label pay for the recording. You know, but yeah, that's how the transition happened. Well, in some respects, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why the transition has happened. I mean, artists just have now more leverage these days than they've ever had historically. But yeah, look, I mean, I'm a massive fan of the independent route. You know, I absolutely love it. And it's, you know, savvy managers now have really got the world at their feet. You know, all in terms of all the back end and the stats and the focus on digital marketing, and, you know, this kind of core discussion that's so prevalent at the moment around, you know, the fundamental notions of what this business is all about. And that's just find your target market and keep them engaged. And it's that simple. You know what I mean? You've just got to find those people. They exist somewhere. You know, you've got to find out where they hang out, and you got to lock them in. And, you know, there's plenty of ways to do that without a record label.
No, of course. And on that note, I mean, obviously you previously said, you know, Tones sort of did really, really well, just even on the first record. You know, was that a similar strategy you had there? Did you already know the target audience, you know, or were you sort of, you know, was there an element of luck involved? Was there, you know, what was the strategy behind that first track doing really well?
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends what aspect of it we talk about, really. But I mean, the whole strategy from early on, I met her in September 2017, and like most good artists who believe in their material, she was keen to release as soon as possible. And we had long, really heartfelt discussions about that early on in like 2018. And because she had, you know, when I found her busking, I pitched to her to move up here, because she was just up here on a holiday. And I pitched for her to leave her job down there and come up here and live with me and work out of my studio. And so she took a big gamble on that and came up, and started busking up here a few days a week and working out of my studio the rest of the time. And she was writing great material, you know, and the busking was epic. It was like nothing you've ever seen. I mean, I'm a big fan of busking, and I've never seen a busker like her. I mean, it was, you know, by the second song, there were 20 people every time. By the fourth, there were 50. By the end of the set, there was 150 every single night. It didn't matter if it was a Tuesday night, a Saturday night, it didn't matter. It was like watching people, because I would sit on the top of the van usually, or sit in the back of the van, and I'd have CDs and I'd walk around occasionally and stuff. But it was so interesting watching, because no one would walk past her. You know, with an ordinary busker, you know, you would have maybe you'd catch 10 or 20% if you're really good of the people that walk by. Like 99% of people that walk past her stopped. And so I knew very early on, based on that it was going to fly. I just knew it. And this was a year and a half before she released a song, you know. And so we kind of, you know, she's a bit of a joker, and, you know, everything for her was always based around competition. And we used to shoot hoops together a lot, and, you know, have bets and this sort of stuff. And we just made a figure. We just said 10,000. I made her, you know, give us some sort of aim to get to that made sense for her. And we just said 10,000 Instagram followers. You know, once you've got 10,000, because, you know, my whole strategy was that I wanted a swell happening before, you know, we released a track. That was the essence of it. You know, I knew that we would come out with a bang, and I wanted to make sure that that bang was proper. And yeah, so we agreed on 10,000 Instagram followers, and that's just what we did. You know, and obviously behind the scenes, I was making sure that the Triple J setup was right, and that I had fed it out to all of the A&R, and you know, I'd got people talking. And so when it dropped, you know, there were 6 Triple J reviews within the first hour.
So just to stop you for a second there, you're talking to a UK audience, so explain the importance of Triple J in Australia, because it's not quite the same in the UK, but
Yeah.
I think there are some similarities with BBC.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Triple J situation in Australia is unique. Like, I'm a big fan of Triple J, and even though I'm getting old, I still listen to them, even though their target market is 20 years younger than.
You haven't shifted to Double J yet?
A little bit. I give Double J a spin every now and then, but yeah, predominantly still Triple J. I think it's more in line with my client base, so it just makes sense for me to be across what's getting added and whatever else. But you know, yeah, Triple J, for those of you who aren't aware, is, you know, responsible for breaking artists here much more so than any other platform. I mean, it's just the way it is. So most artists have a love-hate relationship with Triple J, but you know, at the end of the day, they, as a national broadcaster, national youth radio broadcaster here, you can hear Triple J anywhere in the country. And it's just had an incredibly strong influence on Australian music for a very long time, and
investment as well. They very much invest in Australian content.
Yeah.
I like that you call it a platform too.
What's that? Sorry?
I said I like that you called it a platform and not a radio station, because Triple J did a great job of diversifying way before all of the commercial radio stations started moving into that. Yeah. So yeah, look, I've always been a fan. It's not really a love-hate relationship for me, because, you know, I've always respected their approach to things. They're always very great to deal with, and at the end of the day, it's a very difficult job that they have. And I think they've done a good job, you know, and in most respects, well, in all respects that I've dealt with them specifically, and you know, they broke terms. It's that simple, really. You know, they were responsible for that initial early buzz, and although she already had 10,000 Instagram followers, and you know, she had a little bit of, you know, there was a bit of a cult sort of thing going on down in Byron, and you know, people were coming to see her when she was busking, you know what I mean? More like they were shows that she was telling people they were on, and, you know, playing down at the beach at 6 p.m. or whatever, and you'd rock up and there'd already be a lot of people there, sort of thing. So she was already building a really, really strong organic following. And it was very much international, because a lot of her fans were backpackers, you know, because she busked in a backpacker town, a beachside town here called Byron Bay, which is quite an iconic sort of place for backpackers to go. So, you know, she had all these fans from all over the world, which really helped us a lot early on, you know. So it was just a really interesting way it all rolled out. And yeah, it was very strategic, but at the end of the day, you know, there's always an element of luck involved. But I like to think that you know, everything was planned except really Dance Monkey, you know, her track that just went nuts. I mean, that cannot be planned. That is just a, you know, whatever you want to call it.
And what are we talking about there? Was that like a sort of algorithmic editorial playlist help thing, or just, you know, everyone at one time coming? Yeah, was it everyone just coming together? You know, sync and radio and everyone just loving it at the same time.
All went boom. Yeah, there was no single factor. Yeah, I mean, Triple J were playing it a little bit, not that much though, because it was her second single, and the first single was like, it did really well. High Rotation was the most played song on Triple J, and Dance Monkey was doing all right, but then all of a sudden it just went nuts. Yeah, it just, the YouTube videos started skyrocketing, and it just, it was really organic. There was no celebrity who posted it or anything like that. It was very much just a real steady, but meteoric rise.
John Watson always talks about the concept of being a manager as like pushing a snowball up a hill, and as it's going up the hill, it's getting bigger, and then it gets to the top of the hill and it starts rolling down, and he spends the rest of his time in front of the snowball trying to slow it down a little bit and try and keep control of things. Have you kind of felt a little bit like you've just got this massive snowball going down the mountain and you're desperately trying to keep the snowball together?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, that
analogy. I love them.
That was deep. Yeah.
No, it works for sure. I mean, it's really, it's a lot of things. It's very intense. I've always found my professional life quite intense, because I think being a lawyer is intense. It just is. You're dealing with complex problems all day, happy people, unhappy people, very minor things that have very major ramifications. So I feel like I sort of have partly become immune to it over many years of practicing law, but as a manager, it is, it's a whole different level of complexity and intenseness. It's quite challenging. It's very challenging. My job, I find my job very difficult. It's very enjoyable, but I think whether you're managing an emerging artist or a highly successful artist, they come with very similar challenges, but definitely managing someone like Tones has given me an experience that not many managers get to have, where it is an absolute whirlwind, in terms of the amount of emails that I receive and the amount of, doors that it opens for me. But it does come with its side effects for sure. I get a lot of BS in my email account now, and a lot of, people wanting things from me a lot more. And because I, in the past, was always very giving with my time and stuff, now doing that is much more difficult, because I have a lot more, because all my friends are musicians, all of them. 95% of my friends are artists. And it's like, I think a lot of artists just think that when you've had some success in this business, you just have access to a magic button or something, and you just, if you can feed them into it, it'll happen for them. And it's just not the case, So I have lots of discussions around that, which I find really difficult to have. A lot of people wanting things from me when I just don't have time to give. Like I get hundreds of emails every day, and I have 2 children under 3, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
On the subject of that, we might just say we really appreciate you giving up.
Yeah.
For our students.
No, I love chatting with people without any pressure or anything. It's nice to be able to talk and reflect on things. So I
nice to chat to someone who doesn't want something from you.
But it's look, I hate complaining, because it's the position that I'm in at the moment is really fortunate. It is a really good time to be in business in the music industry, and there's so much interesting things happening, and I have ideas every week of new businesses that I want to start and stuff, because there's so much going on, and it's quite exciting, and at its core, a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about the industry when they're being negative for whatever reason. But it is really a great business to work in. There are definite difficulties of this business, and a lot of the cliches are true, but it is ultimately a pretty nice space to work in. When you think about the comparison with, I was an insurance lawyer for starters, so the insurance industry. I was a construction lawyer for a little while, the construction industry, or the banking industry. I was a major project lawyer for a little while, which is mining and infrastructure. Like when you think about all of those different industries, like there's a lot more sharks and, you know, all the stuff that we hear about the music industry. When you think about other industries, they're all just as bad, if not worse. You know, all the faux sincerity and all this stuff that the music industry gets targeted for, it exists in every industry. You know, every business is hard. And so, yeah, I think my job is really hard, but
it's an attractive place to work. It's an attractive place to work at the end of the day. So, you know, it's under so much spotlight within media. You know, so X amount of things have been corrected over time. You know, so when we talk about the amount of sharks in the music industry, it's because, well, you know,
thanks,
how many people want to watch a documentary or, you know, want to regularly read articles on, you know, the insurance sharks out in the world, whereas, you know, people are a lot more, you know, mentally astute and aware. Of,
He's saying it's like the documentaries of the zookeepers who are sane and well organized. They're kind of boring. Whereas,
So yeah, look, I love it. I love the industry. I'll always work in the music industry. I can't really imagine changing games at any point because I just love music. You know, I love it. So, you know, I'm listening to it all day. I'm helping people better understand how they can monetize what they're doing. And it's just, it's all positive. You know, I can pretty much avoid the fights now because, you know, I don't have to deal with them. You know, it's just when you're just practicing predominantly as a lawyer, it's like you can't like do all the good things with your client, and then when they have a fight with someone, say, "Oh, sorry, dude, I can't help now." But now I can do that, you know, because I don't have time and I don't want to deal with fights. Sorry, I am dealing with some fights at the moment that are inevitable, but it's and so I. You know, is this only your students that hear this, or does this go public online?
No, just
so you know.
No, just students.
We'll create a clean version.
You know what? Let's just assume that it might go public on the London College of Music, and then you'll get like a whopping 100 people listening to it.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So be careful.
Yeah, it's a big money earner for us.
Yeah. We're just going to monetize all of this, and those 100 sweet plays are going to come our way.
Yeah. The annoying thing is, though, I can't remember the controversial thing I was about to say. What was I talking about?
It's probably lucky that you don't have to deal with fights, but you're dealing with fights, which I always love.
Yeah, I am dealing with fights at the moment. I just wouldn't want my clients who I'm dealing with their fights to think that I'm hating it. But I do hate it. I mean, that's the reality of it. No one likes dealing with fights, but some lawyers do, you know, and it's in their nature. And, you know, I guess there are two types of lawyers. You know, there are commercial lawyers and litigators, and I'm a commercial lawyer. I like bringing people together and building relationships, and dealing with fights is horrible, you know, especially for sensitive people. And, you know, I still have a bit of the artist in me, even though I'm not playing anymore. You know, I still feel like I've got a lot of those sensitivities that an average artist does. I'm not as hard-nosed as most lawyers. So yeah, I like bringing people together, doing deals. But unfortunately, you know, there are, you know, it's very rare for an artist to make their way through this. Well, for anyone, for a manager, artist, young label entrepreneur or whatever, to make their way through this business unscathed, it's just impossible, really. Yeah. So,
on that subject, I did read a little bit about, like, I mean, you're a human being as well, and you're a human being who clearly has a very close relationship on a human level with an artist. And there was talk, sort of ambiguous talk, about lots of abuse that happened online and that sort of stuff, and dealing with an artist who clearly has had some issues with, I'm not going to say depression because I don't know if anything was clinically diagnosed, but, you know, has struggled with some of the success and the attention that's just kind of shot really hard. How are you as a human being dealing with some of that stuff? Because, like you said, you're a sensitive person, and I get the impression from some of the things that I've read that Tones has been attacked a little bit, which is not cool on any level.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate aspect of all of it, and it has had an impact for sure. Yeah, and it's difficult. It's difficult to talk about because you know, yeah, it was all very intense and just unexpected. I hadn't really considered it going into all of this, and when it all started to happen, which is pretty much immediately, I just yeah, did my best to be as supportive as I possibly could for her, you know, and yeah, but she, you know, she found it very difficult early on and still does because it's, yeah, I mean, she's human like the rest of us. No one wants horrible things said about them. And I think, you know, initially it was mainly Australian, and it predominantly has been Australian, unfortunately. It doesn't say very good things about our culture here, but I mean, it's not a unique thing culturally. But the sort of tall poppy syndrome at its worst, I think it was. And, you know, but it was just nonsense really, you know, and so, you know, she just had a difficult journey to get through all of that psychologically, but she definitely has come out stronger on the other side, and she's evolving, and she's very comfortable with who she is as an artist. And, you know, what I love about Tones is that she's one of those artists that people who are trying to be artists but aren't really artists want to be. You know, she's a real artist. There's no other choice for her. It's like, even if she didn't play music, she'd be an artist. You know what I mean? It's just, if she didn't play it live or whatever, and wasn't selling it and making money out of it, she's trapped in there, you know, and so she's trying to make sense of that world and who she is, and the judgment and stuff. It is not ideal, but it's only made her stronger. And I mean, the main thing that, you know, she copped flack for a lot of things, none of which was warranted. But the main thing about her voice, you know, the uniqueness in her voice, I guess, is the thing that copped a lot of the flack. And it's like, it's just a stupid thing to have a go at people about, you know, have a go at artists about, because, you know, at the end of the day, she's just doing what comes naturally to her, and her voice is different and unique. But I mean, that's you know, it's been great for her, you know, and it's connected, and she has tried different things, or tried to sound differently, to sound different and change and adapt a little bit here and there, but it just never felt right for her to be doing something other than just being completely natural in what she does. And yeah, so it sucked for sure, and it still does, to be honest. It still happens, but, you know, she's quite open about those things. But obviously, I'm sensitive to talking about it because it's not my place to really say. As a manager, all I can do is be 100% supportive of her in every respect, and do the best I can to work behind the scenes to make sure that she's, you know, she's in a position where she feels confident to manage that aspect of her career. But it's not a nice aspect of the career for sure. And you know, some artists get it and some don't. And she's spoken to other artists who have had similar experiences. And yeah, I guess that helped. That helped a bit. I think it did. But yeah, other than that, it's the strength of her friendships and stuff, I think, that's really really been the core thing that's helped her through that. She's got very strong. She relies very heavily on her friends. She has a very good close network of, you know, 4 or 5 friends in her life that are very special to her. And that, you know, so I'm very close to all of her close friends. They are also very close friends of mine now. And so I guess that's helped her mostly through it. You know, I tried to steer the business and make sure that all made sense as it was all happening. And she relied on me when she needed to, but predominantly on her close network of friends to help pull her through. But she's, you know, she's pretty tough, Tones, and she just does things in her own way, you know, so she's dealt with it how she wants to, and that's how she does things, on her terms. And credit to her.
Great.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing
So,
that as well.
I mean,
So after all this, you know, this amount of success that she's had is obviously still very early on in her career. So do you feel there's an element of sort of that, even though there isn't an album, is there? There's a collection of Tones and I singles on Spotify and stuff, but there isn't an album. But do you have that kind of second album syndrome kind of thing, given that you've now got to follow up to this, immense amount of success that blew up?
Mm. Yeah, well, look, she's released 8 songs thus far. So the debut EP had 6 songs on it, and she's had 2 singles, and those singles will be on her first album, which is coming out in August. And so the first EP is really strong, and everything she has shown me over the years has just been epic. She's just such a good songwriter. I just don't have any fears of that, because I get asked the question a lot about the anxiety we might have around her being a one-hit wonder and all that stuff, and it's just not on my radar. It's just not, and it's not just blind faith as a manager. I'm very conscious of that concept, but it's she's an epic songwriter. Man, if she said she never wanted to play another show or deal with a record label ever again, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, no worries, sweet. We've got a publishing career, easy. So she just knows melody. For me, it's all about, the connection of a melodic instrument with a voice, and she can do that any time of day with any instrument in any context. And
amazing.
So as long as she can always have her wits about her and the desire to keep writing music, she will. I'm 100% confident, as are all the people in the publishing circles that we're connected to who have been exposed to a lot of her demos and stuff. We're all very confident that she has longevity guaranteed.
So
sorry.
So sorry, you built a bit of a. Did you build the team around her? Because I noticed she worked with Konstantin on her first single. Was that you that brought all that together?
Yeah. We tried a few different producers. Con wasn't the first producer we tried, but I was obviously familiar with Con, and he had just done some work with another client of mine, Tia Gostello, that I really liked. And I just think sonically at the time, he was the producer I was vibing the most on. And so I just arranged a catch up with the two of them, and they vibed really, really well. And he's been a great producer for her. He's produced roughly half, 6, no more. He's produced 3/4 of her material, so 6 of her 8 songs. Is that right? Yeah, I think 5 or 6 of her 8 songs have been produced by Con. He's a great fit, and she is working with other producers now. She's tried a number of other producers, trying out some relatively big names at the moment and seeing how that works. But everything she's done to date has really been co-produced. She's a loop artist at her core. That's what she did when she was busking. So she writes everything with a loop pedal and her keyboard. So her demos are pretty much done when she delivers them to a producer, in terms of all the parts anyway. But Con's done a great job of bringing them to life. What was nice about Tone's early sound is that, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying this, but her sound early on could only be described as cheap. Like she had this shitty little keyboard, and it was great. It was great music, but you could tell it was a shitty keyboard, and it was broken. Half the keys didn't work, and she didn't have great gear when she was busking. So Con really, he was the first producer who really brought it to life. He really turned them into, radio tracks, and whereas the other producers we had worked with prior to that really tried to capture the organic sort of rawness of what she was doing, but it just didn't translate onto record. So Con was the first one who kind of stepped it up a gear and made it sound like it was, ready to go. And so they really clicked, and yeah, he Dance Monkey changed his life as well, big time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
yeah.
mm, yeah.
Anyway, I
So
unless we've got anything else, we might kind of wrap it up a little bit there because I mean we've been chewing your ear off for an hour or so. We don't want to waste too much of your time. But
no worries. Yeah, well, Friday night here, so I'm it's 9 o'clock on a Friday night, so I will probably just go and watch an episode of something and then fade off to sleep on the couch.
that's the
My
new world
usual
now,
Friday
isn't it?
night. Yeah, no,
Um,
I mean, yeah, Friday night's my one night where I kind of veg out a bit. So, yeah, I'll go and relax with my dog on the couch. The kids are both asleep, and no doubt my wife will be in there waiting for me to come and watch some telly with her or something. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
So,
much for
yeah,
giving.
thanks, Pat.
Yeah, it's been
Thanks,
great.
Pat.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, good to see you again, man. It's been too long.
Yeah, likewise. I hope everything's going well over there. And
Well, when
yeah, if you ever want to chat about it,
when this is all over, we'll have to have you come and see the uni and say hi to some of the students. I'm sure they'll be glad to, or, want to meet you after this.
Yeah, if you're ever in in this place called London, you might have heard of it. It's
It's a
yeah,
it's a great rainy place.
yeah.
yeah, man,
Feel free.
yeah. I
to
was
come
meant
around.
to be there pretty soon. I mean, Tones had a pretty epic summer, European summer festival run. I was doing the whole thing with her, so I was pretty devastated
Oh no.
on that about that. But I will be back in London. I assume
Who's her
by
agent in the UK?
Well, she has. So the setup at the moment is in Australia, New Zealand, we have Harry at Lonely Lands Agency, and sorry, I've just got a text message that has shocked me just a little bit. Can you just give me 2 secs? Can you pause this bit of the video?
Yeah,
and
hang on.
go
I'll
back?
just do the go. So yeah, we were
Okay.
talking about agents. There'll be a whole
Yeah.
bunch of
So
whole bunch of
yeah.
speculation and controversy as to why the video cut for a little while, and and we'll keep it that way. We want to keep it mysterious.
Yeah. Oh, it's just no. I don't mind saying. Yeah, I was just meant to. I was meant to. Well, a friend, well, the artist that I was telling you about, who's doing post rock stuff that I've been helping it with one of my closest friends, and it's been really hard for him to grapple with not being able to do film because he's a videographer by trade, and so he's releasing this great music, and obviously because of the social distancing stuff, it's stuffed everything, and so I was meant to shoot tonight because it was only me, him, and his wife, and I completely just forgot. But anyway, let's start that again. I just had a really busy day, and yeah, unfortunate. He'll be upset at me. But yeah, back to agents. So we have Lonely Lands Agency does Australia, New Zealand, and Asia, and so we haven't done anything in Asia yet, but we had planned to, but that's all being cancelled now. But out of the US, we have Paradigm with Marty Diamond over there, and some other agents in Paradigm. Marty Diamond's the big dog, and two other agents there, which has been really great. So that's for North America, and Paul Boswell at Free Trade for UK and Europe, and he's been wonderful. And yeah, so everything on the live front's been a really enjoyable process. You know, she's a great live artist, and the agents have been working their backsides off. And really disappointing that it was going to be a really unique year for me this year. You know, my first European summer festival run, and seeing all these great. She was playing like 1,500 cap venues on the last tour, and this one was like stepping it up a notch.
He did the forum. Did he get to do the February date or things? No, you got to do the forum, didn't you? Here
In London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
great venue.
Yeah, so and the Forum here in Australia is an iconic venue too. That she sold out a few nights there, and it's just disappointing. I mean, not so much the money aspect of it, because that didn't matter so much because overseas touring's so expensive anyway. The overheads are intense, but it was more just the experience. We were all pretty excited for a massive year. So yeah, a bit of a letdown, but a lot of people are suffering. I mean, the agents themselves that we just talked about, I mean, they're all suffering a lot harder.
It's horrible. It's hard. Yeah, I've been talking to some here, and they're sort of all of their work for the year, all of their income gone. Same with promoters. And some of the, some of the, obviously in the UK we've got so many grassroots venues and stuff. We've got pretty intense campaigns going on here to try and save them. Because the government's dealing with it in its own way.
Yeah, we got a Tory government here, you got a Tory government there. You know how it is. Yeah,
I do.
The arts, that's the thing we crush when we're stepping towards the mining companies.
Yeah, but I don't know. We're just trying to stay positive, like everyone, and obviously it's going to be a massive buzz when everything starts up again, and I guess hopefully I can have that same year next year.
In the meantime,
we didn't keep any of the deposits from the promoters, so hopefully they'll have us all back.
Oh,
wow,
that was polite.
In the meantime, as well, bunch of songs getting written at the moment, I assume.
Yeah. She's releasing an album in August, so it's all going to be delivered. July 1 is the date. So she's working hard. She's just had a little studio set up in her room at home, and she's trying to smash it out on the home front. Really, she's tracking a little bit herself, but she's still got fairly basic skills with there. So just trying to get an engineer in soon, but unfortunately not just yet. So she's just been practicing and tracking a little bit of stuff herself, but we really need to get an engineer in there ASAP. So just waiting till we can do that legally, pretty much. But the demos that we're hearing are great, and the demos are good enough that she can send them to the producer to do them externally, but it's always nice she really vibes off being in the room and stuff. So we'll get there though, I reckon. She's got a ton of great demos and some pretty cracker melodies, so I'm pretty excited about it.
Brilliant stuff. Well, we won't keep you any longer. So again, great to see you. If you're ever up for it, we're happy to have you here in London and do another chat at some point. But obviously, you're a rather busy man at the moment.
Yeah, no, but I'm always happy to have a chat. Yeah, and I'll be over there next year a couple of times, no doubt. And I'd be happy to chat up, or if you chat then, or if you ever want to dive deep on a more specific topic or anything, I'm always happy to. Yeah,
we'll go into the difference between Australian and British beers next time. And,
British beers, that's it. At the moment, I'm hooked on the difference between Australian and English management agreements. There's some classic differences in there that I'm grappling with in a pretty intense negotiation for an artist at the moment. This artist has got a fair bit of leverage, and so her lawyer's pushing really hard, but it's quite significant, the industry standard differences between us and you guys over there. I won't go into detail on that now, but
if I've learned anything over the last few years, is that no management agreement is kind of the same at the moment. It's certainly between us managers here. We're all sort of meeting up at the MMF thing, which is the Music Managers Forum, which we have. It's kind of like the trade union for managers, and we're all talking about the different contracts we have with our artists, and some are wildly different. Some managers are saying, "Oh, everything I release is now 50-50 with an artist, and I take 50% ownership in the recordings with the artist." Other managers are saying, "Oh no, I just stick to the 20%," but and different rules. Yeah. So things are pretty varied at the moment, we're finding. So
it'd be great to get you in and have a bit of a keynote chat in one of our big halls or something about the differences between Australian and British management. That'd actually be a really interesting discussion. Maybe get you and Kwame involved as well, and see see if we can get
Yeah.
a few managers talking about these differences, and kind of even hashing it out live would be pretty fun.
I mean, that's why I was quite surprised when you said you didn't have a share in Bad Batch. Because that's a pretty standard thing that we're doing over here in saying, well, if we're going to do the independent thing,
Oh yeah, that's standard here as well.
yeah, us managers will instead of double dipping, so to speak, we're just saying, all right, I'm not going to take my 20-25% from your recorded music. We're just going to take 25% share in the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense in a lot of respects, but it all depends on the individual circumstances. But when managers are managing independent artists that are kicking goals, it's like they're running a label. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, so it's fair game. But I mean that's one of the interesting points that I'm negotiating right now is that and there's no way of anyone knowing who I'm talking about, so I don't really mind saying that. All the managers just asking for 30% on independent releases, instead of 20%. And he feels very justified in making that claim and does that with his other artists. I mean, he runs a record label as well. That's like, he just wants that extra percentage as a representation of the fact that if she maintains, her journey on the independent route, that he is going to be working a lot harder, and therefore should be entitled to a slightly bigger slice of the masters, which, even, if I was acting for the artist, I would of course fight against it because that's my job. But when acting for the manager in this context, it's, and being a manager myself, asking for 30% on the master side when you're running independent releases, to me is fair game.
Yeah.
But it's one of many ways to skin it, obviously.
Yeah. Well, it was a really interesting transition to that as well. I mean, I've still got deals that are still in effect where, we said that to the lawyer, to the artist lawyer, and said, oh yeah, we want to up our percentage. And no, managers only take 20%. So what we had to do in the meantime was you take 30%. But then once the artist makes you X amount of commission, that then drops back down to the 20%.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what lawyers do. They make a big hurrah about things as to, pretending to be shocked
change.
about things.
Yeah.
If they were acting for the other side, they'd be doing exactly the opposite.
Of course.
So you never really know. It's only when you see enough deals that you can make sense of it all by seeing the trends. You know what I mean? Because all the chit chat that you hear, it gets, once it's gone through the wash enough times, it all, so it's, I still like keeping my hand in the legal pie for that reason. Well, that's one of the main reasons, is that being able to see what other people are doing really helps me with my artists, being able to know what, these Distro Plus deals is a great example. The sort of difference in deals you're getting at the moment when you get it going the solo route with add-ons with your distro deal, it's classic.
I mean, I've been fortunate that I've had success with exactly one of those kind of deals, but I am certainly finding that they are still yet to catch up with. I'm not going to name who the company is, but certainly streaming wise, it's done very well for us, but they're still yet to catch up on the difference between them being a distributor and a record label, or if they're going to provide label services on top of their distribution, the kind of things we as managers would expect from them, in most scenarios. Whereas if you work with a label, they've obviously come through years of understanding the roles of A&R and marketing and artist facing roles, which I think a lot of distributors are still finding is a fairly let's just say some do it better than others.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of artists and mainly managers now realizing that you can get distro so cheap now, and they're suddenly realizing, oh, hey, so record labels are taking X percentage, but distro is really only worth this, and is everything else they do worth the other 95% of what they're taking from me? And it's like, what are they actually doing again? Oh yeah, they're just marketing the record. Like, I can pay a third party in different territories to market the record, and I can be really selective in the PR and pluggers and stuff that I use. So I mean, for savvy managers, I reckon if you've got a good artist and you've got your head on and you're really determined, passionate, and motivated, it's all about independent at the moment for a lot of managers out there. You know what I mean? It is, but it's great having a label though as well. So
well, there's a healthy balance now because we've been given this insight into what we can do just ourselves, with that amount of freedom, which is really what it is.
Yeah.
I'm certainly in a position where I've got an act signed and then an act doing the distro plus kind of thing, and you almost feel restricted going between the two. It's almost like being able to breathe when you go back to the distribution thing.
Yeah.
So getting your creative main back in terms of what you can do business wise.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Before we go down another rabbit hole, I'm probably gonna call it. Otherwise, you'll never get any sleep, mate. We'll start.
Sweet guys.
We'll dig into details when we get you across to London.
Cool. Take care.
Awesome, mate. See you, Jackson.
Thanks very much, man.
See you. Bye bye.